The world is certainly changing in 2024 and Lithas is no exception. Hello friends, my name is RagePanda1 and today I'm going to guide you through some of the things that have changed and the information you need to beware of that you may have seen in other videos. Now, the first things first, I want to cover some stuff that I have told you is good in other videos, and I want to make sure that you don't fall for those traps if you're going through my backlog and seeing what you need to do to be good at the game. So the first thing is, I do have a video that talks about getting a good team right off the bat, and the thing is that these teams used to be really good, but power creep has happened and these characters aren't worth investing in any longer. In fact, almost none of the early game champions are a good investment anymore. Nobody that you can get from the companion summons is really going to do a great deal of work for you in terms of combat. You're going to use that instead to get all of your district champions and get them set up. If you have any questions about that, then I have other videos on taking care of that, or you can ask me in my Discord, which is linked below. So, the Ignis Companion and the Lionstone Companion, I have said in the past, are worth investing in so that you get a guaranteed good team. It's no longer the case. Just don't do it, not even the Lionstones, and I have a whole video telling you why female Lionstone is no longer good or worth recommending, even though you are definitely going to still hear people say that. It is not actually true. I believe that they're wrong about that. So, at least, before you invest in it, watch my other video, and then decide for yourself if you think that it's worth it or not. In some of my other videos, and around the community as a whole, many people have recommended not only the male Yevnayan as a good champion to use, but also focused as a trait to be put on almost everybody. There are some people who used to just say put that literally on everybody. I didn't agree with that even back in the day, but now, focused has been nerfed into the ground, and it sucks. It's not worth ever using. Don't waste your time. Don't get the companion to mythic, at least not right away. You will eventually, but it's no longer a main goal and it is not worth using ever. It's never worth using anymore. Unfortunate but true. The same can be said for Devout, which came on the Aeson clan. However, one thing that has not changed is that the male Aeson is still good. The reason the male Aeson is still good is because even though there's power creep, he gives you strength buffs for your team, and a lot of it. So all of the characters that came out that are still extra super strong, he's making them even more extra super strong. Is he gonna make it into your late game teams when you're at the end of the game and you've been playing for a year? Maybe not, probably not. Depends on if you got a crazy amount of vigor on him, I suppose. But in the early game, which is what I assume you are since you're watching this here little vidya, unless maybe you're just a constant supporter and you watch all my stuff, and if that's true, then thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I love you. And you look really handsome today, and or beautiful. You pick which one applies to you, but it's definitely one of those two. So this guy is still worth investing in above everybody else that's an early game champion. I think that he's one of the best for the early game, and that has not changed. But Devout is garbage now. Same reason they both got nerfed to only last for 10 seconds. Almost every trait that does that is horrible, not usable. While we're talking about traits, I also used to say that energetic is strictly better than honorable in basically all situations. Now, keep in mind that when I was saying this, our strongest healers were the male Lume, and then we started to get the female Galabar around the time where I stopped making videos. I took my little hiatus. Honorable gains value over time when you have healers on your team. So at a certain point, if you have two healers, or if you have this male Water and Sun that I'm looking at, who is incredibly strong, vastly overpowered, totally broken, get him if you can get him, even if it's through the companion gift exchange, because he is wildly overpowered. When you have those healers, honorable is better than energetic. However, it takes a lot for that to be true. It takes a great deal for that to be true. If you're running one healer, energetic is still better. But in most teams these days, you're running extremely strong healing. A lot of characters are doing it these days, and therefore honorable, more often than not, is better than energetic, but only in the situation that you're running healers. That's it. That's the only time. I will also, while we're sitting here, I will clarify that even though the Speedy Boy build with Agile and Focused is dead and it doesn't work and it's garbage, most of the traits that are recommended around the world, especially in my website, if it's not a Speedy Boy build, it's still a strong build. Steadfast, still good. Aggressive, still good. Brutal, amazing. One of the best traits in the game, maybe the best trait in the game. These common traits are still good. All of those old clan traits that we were using is still good. Hulking, Sanguine, all still good. The only thing that's changed there, in my opinion, is there is the Kavak clan with the Impair trait, which is extremely good, and there is the Stone Thrower clan with the Rapid Shots trait. Those are two that you need to look out for. Most of the other clans with their clan traits are are not switching up the meta of what we were using before, so you don't need to worry about that, and you're pretty safe with the standard builds that we were using for a long time. I have a video talking about all of the new clan traits if you're interested to know more about that topic. I did talk once about the Guardian Stone and how I was putting 1 point into each of the things. I still think that's a perfectly viable thing to do, but as you can see, I'm not doing that right now. I'm getting strength first for the characters that I'm using. I'm getting constitution for the characters that I'm using, and then I'm going into dodge and damage reduction. Some people will tell you to get damage reduction before constitution, and they are wrong. They are wrong. The reason is because you can't just completely skip making your constitution strong. You have characters that are going to do extremely huge ultimates, and they're going to just crush your entire life. You need to be able to survive those big one hits. You can't do that just strictly from having damage reduction, because it's not as much of a buffer as the direct health upgrades are. So it's better to use the direct health upgrades, at least in some instance. But I will also say that getting the strength for the tank class is a bit of a trap. You don't necessarily need to do that. If you want to put 1 point into all of these because it's cheaper and the percentages are more effective, you're getting more for your points, then go ahead and do that. Just make sure that you're not stuck unable to spend your higher level points because you didn't level one of them all the way through the bronze, aka the green medals. So of course we still have our challenges that we always like to mess with. You get to that by this upper right corner here. You should be trying to participate and get as high in those rankings as you can for everything without overspending and making yourself broke. But it's important to note that now there is a thing called Conquest of Saqqad, and that's down in the bottom right corner. And if we go into the Conquest of Saqqad, there is yet another seasonal leaderboard, which has yet another series of challenges. This one happens to also be the Intimacy Challenge. So you want to pay attention to this one and what you need to do for that, including all of the quests that need to be done, which you should try to complete at a bare minimum if you can. It used to be true that I would tell you that summoning on this banner in an early account is a much better idea than summoning on the newer banners. I was saying that over a year ago when the new clans that had come out were not power creeping that hard. All of these old champions were still extremely viable, and getting enough copies of them through this so that you could get your mythics and you could ascend them up, and you had easy access to the companions so you could take them all the way to 15 stars. Back then it was a better strategy. Now it's not anymore because how much stronger all of the newer people are. The newer champions are not exclusively strictly better, but most of the time they are vastly stronger than these older champions, and it's no longer worth doing. So even on my first few summons, I would not summon on this banner any longer. I would only do it on the event banners. And when you're just starting your account doing your first summons, you can get away with only doing a few multi-summons on here and be happy. And then you want to save up so you can try to get a companion the next time you're going for it. Maybe on the next event banner you're going to summon and not quite make it enough, just so that you can keep ascending and keep leveling up your characters. That's fine, but you don't want to do it on the standard banner anymore. Never use it. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about vigor in all of their videos, and vigor is still a very good thing. You still need to get it very high, but it's no longer the only way that you're going to get huge gains in your power. There's been an upgrade to equipment and how those levels work. Gear needs its own video, that's for sure. I will just tell you that when you're leveling up your gear now, it's not just about getting it as high level as you can get it. You need to hit certain breakpoints and then stop leveling them. First one you're going to hit is level 10 on your equipment. That's going to allow you to put in your first rune. These runes are incredibly strong. You cannot neglect them. You must figure out the system. It's not that complicated, and even if you're blindly clicking, you really can't mess it up too badly. What you can mess up is you can waste a lot of your experience if you're not careful with where you're stopping and how much you're putting into each piece of gear. So you're going to get all of your gear to level 10 on your first team. I start with all of my weapons, and then I do all of the ones for my constitution runes, and those constitution runes are going to go into the boots. Then I will level up my helmets, and then I will level up the chest. The chest piece gives you dodge, which is nice, but it also doesn't contribute that much to your overall might. So it's a smaller upgrade than most, at least in terms of your maximum might. I'm not sure how it really equates in the real game, but dodge is just a gamble at best, so that's why I like to go for the others. And I believe that I made a mistake here when I was on my my new account, and that is that I didn't realize how important having a second team is now. It didn't used to be important at all. You didn't need it for anything. But now with the conquest of Saqqad, there's more than one game mode where you need multiple teams that are reasonably strong, and for that reason, I would have waited to go to level 15 on all of my weapons, which I did end up doing on my main squad, and it has kept me from getting maxed out level 10 gear and kept me from getting full runes on my second team. Now, you don't really need a third team at the very beginning, but having a second team is a pretty good idea these days. And I think for a newer account, the best thing that you can do is get your gear to level 10, get your guys to 10 stars, get 2 teams set up that have reasonable characters on them that are pretty good, but are not the same identical team. You want to have different champions. The reason is because you need to be able to have different champions for some of these game modes. You can't have copies. And then to differentiate these characters, I will be ascending my main team a little higher. They will be getting the gold first. And once everybody has their level 10 gear, then my main team is going to go to level 15, starting with weapons. And they're also going to get all of these pieces of gear that have the class symbols, because there's going to be a big bonus for that. So even though my teams are pretty close in levels and in runes at this point, my main team is significantly higher because they catch all of the vigor. They have the level 15 weapons with the extra runes, and it makes a huge difference. And then finally, talking about team composition, because the healers weren't as strong before, and because there weren't so many of them, we didn't worry that much about anti-heal. It was nice when we could get it, but there weren't that many places that we could get it. That is different now. Anti-heal is vastly important. You need it on every single team, every team. So if you're looking at a team that has been recommended somewhere by somebody, even if it's one of my old videos, and it doesn't have any forms of anti-heal on it, it is no longer super viable, and things need to be changed about it. That might just be traits. It might be changing out 1 or 2 champions and changing some traits, but you have to have anti-heal these days, and area of effect crowd control is much stronger for winning matches than just doing the burst meta that people used to do of cranking up high damage and trying to boost it with a bunch of buffs. That's no longer great. To be fair, you might get some cheeky wins with it, but it's not going to be actually a good strategy. There, of course, are a ton of other changes that have happened in the game. They have added sprites. That's not a concern of you yet because you're playing on a new account, I assume, since you're watching this video. So there's no need to worry about that just yet. But while we're on the topic of having teams in the mid game, I do want to talk about 2 different things that I have said in the past that are no longer true. Number 1 is that just pushing your campaign as high as you can get it was not a good strategy back in the day, especially on servers that were getting a little bit older. And the reason was because of the scaling of the servers. If you're on a new server, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. You can pump your campaign as high as you can possibly go, and you'll still be just fine in Dungeon Descent. And the other thing is that I was stopping leveling up my characters, avoiding going to 13 star for a while. And the reason was because there was a smaller amount of players, there was a smaller number of servers, there was a small amount of people who had made it to the end of the game with having max level characters and a ton of vigor. And once you crossed a certain threshold, since there were so few people, you would suddenly start getting grouped against the enemies that were max level, and you were nowhere even close. So your 10 million power team was fighting 100 million power enemies, and there's nothing that you could do about it, and life was not fun. There's a bigger pool of players now, there's a ton of servers out there, and the matchmaking system has more to work with. It's much more balanced now than it used to be, and you do not need to worry about ascending your characters too far any longer. It's just not a concern. You can take it as high as you want to take it, and there are going to be people that are somewhat close to you in power, and they're going to be able to fight you instead of you getting put against the top players and biggest spenders as soon as you get into the 13 and 14 star level range. So don't worry about that anymore. Go and get your power, girl. Have a good time. Now, I'm sure that there's a ton of stuff in a video like this that a person like me might miss. And if I did, then it's important that you share it down in the comments below, because people are going to need to know that information. Don't just assume that I'm being perfect up here. Your knowledge is important too, and I thank you for it. Now, if you do believe that this video has helped you avoid any of those pitfalls in any way, especially if you're a new player, then I would invite you to do the thing that it says up there, which is to subscribe. Because I'm putting out videos like this at least 3 times a week, sometimes more, and I also do streams where I will help you get your account in order. I do hope to see you there, but for now, I want to thank you for watching. I have been RagePanda1, and I will see you in the next one.